Welcome back, everyone. Today's going to be a bit of a controversial one, so buckle up and sit down to avoid any fainting spells with it. But yeah, and if you're wondering why there was no video last week, this video is why. I've been trying to do this video over and over again, rewriting scripts, going over discussion points in my head, and honestly, I have not been able to come up with a video that came out under 20 or 30 minutes. There's just so much in this topic to unpack, and we're just going to get into it, and I'm going to keep it as brief as possible, so do bear with me. Now, originally I did want to discuss about killer entitlement. Unfortunately, I ran into this wall where it became impossible to discuss the topic of killer entitlement without first discussing how Survive with Friends has absolutely broken the game. And it has, and we'll get into that in just a moment. And as we're getting into it, I want you to allow me to blow your minds. Well, at least most of your minds, because this is something that all the top and most popular Dead by Daylight content creators have gotten wrong for years. We're talking everyone from True Talent to Otstarva, Dowsey, Choi, even to someone who I cite a lot in my videos, Tide Time. And even something that I myself have gotten wrong in the past. And that is that, make sure you're seated because the fainting spells will ensue. Dead by Daylight is not a 4v1. Dead by Daylight is a free-for-all. Now, the devs have even described this game as such, calling it a 4v1v1v1v1v1, whatever that means, right? Well, when you look at the game on a mechanical level, and then you look at the way that winning and losing has been determined before the emblem system and after the introduction of skill-based matchmaking, it becomes very obvious that this is the case. The 4 survivors, the 4 element of it, are 4 players with a common goal, not a shared goal. There is a very important distinction there. Shared goals are for team games, but they have a common goal against the killer player who has a goal that runs counter to their common goal. This actually harkens back to something that the developer Patrick had said and was flamed on and memed on for, and still is even to this day, years ago. The paraphrasing, accurately, but still paraphrasing, is that kills equals skill or escaping equals skill. And in retrospect, he's not wrong in that regard. I mean, kills still don't equal skill and escaping doesn't necessarily equal skill, but the whole point of it was that where the community had it wrong is that we were looking at the game as a 4v1. The way they were looking at the game was in terms of a free-for-all. So it wasn't the simple matter of just beating the killer as a survivor. Escaping means you also outfoxed the other survivors. So you were the one who was able to escape, not them. And this is where we really begin to get into where Survive with Friends breaks the game. Survive with Friends takes the 4 survivors and it puts them all on the same team, isolating the killer, when in reality no one's supposed to be on the same team. Everyone's just expected to cooperate with each other to varying degrees to ensure that their own goals are met. For the survivors, it's working on generators and running the killer to make sure that they can get out alive. Oh, for survivors, it's also sandbagging other survivors and leaving survivors to die to ensure that they get out alive. Yes, that's correct. At varying phases of the game, survivors are expected to essentially be on the same side as the killer, so long as their goals align. And that's what Survive with Friends breaks. And this is when we get into the true genius that is Dead by Daylight. You see, Dead by Daylight isn't even a traditional free-for-all. What it is a horror story sim. Mind blown twice in one video. This is why the hatch mechanic has been the way it was for so many years. It wasn't because the game was survivor-sided and trying to be unfair to the killers. It's the final survivor trope. That's what it was always about. The last survivor should reasonably have a strong chance of escaping because they're the final survivor. It's a story sim, not even a traditional PvP. It's us, the community, who's had it wrong for all these years. And that's why Dead by Daylight's in such the mess that it is, because it's caught in a lot of ways between balancing itself for a 4v1 and yet trying to stay true to what it is as a horror movie sim. I mean, when you really think of it, Dead by Daylight is years ahead of its time. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's flawed in a number of ways, but the fact that it is a horror movie sim in the way that it has been is itself years ahead of its time. It takes the players and it puts them in the perspective of someone who is in a horror story, and it gives you full agency over the role you're playing, whether that be the survivor or the killer. And this is really an incredibly special thing when you think of it, an incredible thing that people or fans of horror can really get into, but it's being destroyed by Survive with Friends. I mean, we don't even have to get into how the comms and the significant increases to efficiency and coordination affect the outcomes of individual matches. We can just look at the way that the mechanics are shifting, have been shifting over time away from a story sim to a traditional 4v1 PvP. And this is very much so to the detriment of Dead by Daylight. You see, for years, the Dead by Daylight community has been discussing various competitors to Dead by Daylight and leaving Dead by Daylight for those games. But yet all those games, whether it be Home Sweet Home Survive or VHS, have failed. And one of the things you don't really see some of the top Dead by Daylight content creators discussing is collectively why these games continuously fail. And the reason is because they're trying to do Dead by Daylight, but better. And what I mean by that is they're trying to make a actual 4v1 asymmetrical game, but failing to understand that the game is failing because of all of the traditional issues that plague a 4v1 game, such as metas, balance issues, and hyper-competitiveness. And you see, this is exactly what Survive with Friends brings to Dead by Daylight. It turns it into a 4v1 with all the traditional problems that we see in a typical 4v1 game. The metas, the balance issues, especially in terms of Dead by Daylight, the balance issues where there normally wouldn't be any, and the hyper-competitiveness between both sides. And the fact that we're also seeing that the community is split into Survivor and Killer shows exactly the kind of problem that Survive with Friends alone has caused this game. And I mean, we haven't even begun discussing the various mechanics that have changed because of Survive with Friends, or because of Killer Entitlement that ended up being a result of misconceptions created by Survive with Friends. Things from keys, to the hatch, to the fact that for the past 2 years we've only gotten anti-loop killers. It's, you know, everything really does fall back on Survive with Friends and the misconception that comes from playing Dead by Daylight. This idea that you can't have fun in Dead by Daylight without playing with your friends. Well, that's completely not true. And the only reason you see it as such is because you don't get Dead by Daylight. And that's the reality of it. The fact that you need to play with your friends to have fun in a horror story simulator and to turn it into some sort of competitive game shows that you don't understand Dead by Daylight. It shows that you are the one who really doesn't get it. And it's a fascinating topic, really, if you think of it. I know there are going to be some players out there who are going to get butthurt or outraged or offended by this, but that's the reality of it. This is not a game that is meant to be played in a competitive sense. This is a horror story sim. And I can't emphasize that anymore, other than saying, look at the goddammit, just look at the mechanics. Look at the actual mechanics of the game outside of Survive with Friends. And when you do that, you'll see that everything I've said is exactly true. And of course, this is where we're going to leave this here for now, because this topic could really just go on forever. And I'm trying to make this video as short as possible. I've cut out a lot of detail in it, and I'm sorry for that. But if you have any more questions, be sure to leave it in the comments below. But from here, this is where we can actually branch off and talk about Killer Entitlement. But that's going to have to wait until next week. So, on that note, I want to thank everyone for listening. If you made it this far, please leave the video a thumbs up and congratulate yourself, because I know this is a topic that a lot of people are just not going to want to even consider, just because of the way that general cognitive dissonance works. And I mean, hell, if you've been on the forums, you'll understand. No one really wants to talk about this topic, and the fact that maybe playing as a team is not the way you should be playing the game. But anyways, I digress. You made it this far. Congratulations to you. Leave a thumbs up on the video. Definitely hit that subscribe button. We are so close to hitting 100. 3 subs away from hitting 100, and we are growing along, and we're getting there. And that's all thanks to you guys. So definitely hit that subscribe button. Help us reach that 100, and who knows, maybe we can get up there and get even higher and reach that 1,000. So until then, I'm going to see you guys in the next video. Check me out on Twitch. Check out my my social I can't talk right now. Check out my Twitch, check out my social media, and I'm going to see you guys in the next video, which is going to be on Killer Entitlement. Bye.